So yesterday at The Intercept, we published a news story about Russia's tampering with the U.S. election infrastructure. Meanwhile, Nevada is shocking the country and moving towards possibly moving towards a Medicaid for all system, because everybody out there knew that, of course, Nevada was going to be the one that led us towards single payer. We all saw that one coming. So we're going to talk about both of these issues today. Feel free to put your questions or comments in the Facebook thread. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'd have to switch over to Facebook and drop your questions in there. On the Russia front, back in August, according to an NSA document that we obtained, the Russian military intelligence launched a spear phishing attack against a company known as VR Systems. Now, VR Systems does software. You can go to their website, check them out, vrsystems.com. They create the software that allows local and state boards of election to keep track of their registered voters. They've got those little poll books sitting on the table when you come in to vote. You say, hey, I'm Ryan Grimm. They scroll through. They say, oh, yep, you're registered. You're free to go vote. Or they say, oh, you're not. We don't have you here. You're not able to vote. So they spear phished VR Systems. The NSA determined that they were successful at least one victim. And most of you probably know what spear phishing is, but it's when a hacker sends out a spoofed email that normally looks like it's coming from Google and says, hey, there's some type of a problem with your account. It's either you've been hacked and so you have to change your password, you need more storage. There can be any number of things, and the goal is to get you to click on the link and then to enter your username and password into a form, which then the hacker collects, and now they have your username and password, and with those credentials they can move to various places. Once they get access to your inbox, they then have access to everything within the system that you have access to. The NSA determined that the purpose of the attack on VR Systems was not necessarily to use, they're not certain, but they didn't think it was necessarily to kind of disrupt the process from there, but rather to gain information and intelligence that would then allow them to cloak their accounts, and so that they could send better spoof emails to local board of election officials. So in September, President Obama met with President Putin in China. They had a face-to-face meeting. Obama said he told Putin, quote, cut it out. Do not tamper with U.S. election infrastructure going forward. This propaganda game that you're playing, okay. The implicit threat being that's water under the bridge, but don't mess with the actual tallying or the registration rolls. Apparently, Putin can't be told what to do. So in October 30th or 31st or November 1st, they launched spear phishing attacks on 122 local election officials, and the NSA concluded that it was, quote, very likely that some of those were compromised. At that point, the trail runs dry. They're going to continue investigating, but at this point, it's unclear exactly what happened. My own take on this is that the intelligence community had said a year and a half ago that Russia's role in the U.S. election was not to tip it to one candidate or another. They didn't think that they even had the capability to do that, but rather it was to sow confusion, create chaos, and sow doubt about the legitimacy of the election and the legitimacy then of the administration that took office. The thinking among Russia at the time was that and among everybody, was that Hillary Clinton was going to win, and so they wanted to do as much damage to her credibility and her legitimacy as possible. Now, transferring power over the course of history has been one of the greatest moments of bloodshed. It is something that societies took millennia to figure out how to do peacefully. That's why you have these patriarchal systems where you pass power down from a father to an oldest son, trying to create some type of peaceful transfer of power so that as it moves from one person or one group to another, a new civil war doesn't break out every 1, 2, 4, or 20 years. Even with a system like that, you still had wars all the time between the oldest brother and the youngest and another brother, or the uncle and the oldest brother. And so one of the greatest innovations of democracy was to create this lever to transfer power peacefully from one party to another. What Russia tries to do, both here and in other countries, is to create some doubt about the legitimacy of that transfer. And the purpose of elections is not just to pick a winner, but it's to convince the losing side that they had a fair opportunity to win the election, and they fell short, and therefore they should accept the results. If they don't accept the results, then you have a constitutional crisis, and you have a crisis of the entire system of government. And if you can undermine faith in American democracy, that has a worldwide effect, because if you're in Zimbabwe and you're trying to be a pro-democracy activist, all the other side has to say is, look, you can't even trust the American elections. How do you heck do you think we're going to have a clean election over here in Zimbabwe? Happy to take any questions about that story. Real quickly, just to give you a brief overview of what's going on in Nevada, they passed a novel bill, and it says this: anybody can get Medicaid. Currently, you have to be within a certain percentage of the poverty line in order to qualify for Medicaid. Nevada said, you know what? Lift that cap completely. If you're currently getting Obamacare and you're getting tax credits, you can use those tax credits to purchase a Medicaid plan. If you're making too much money to get those tax credits, then you have to buy your Medicaid plan outright. But this public Medicaid plan is going to compete with the private ones and try to keep the rates down. It has passed the Nevada legislature. It's now on Brian Sandoval's desk. He's a Republican governor of Nevada, fairly moderate for a Republican, has some presidential aspirations of his own, and so he's now mulling whether or not he's going to sign this bill into law. If he does, he would need some sort of a waiver from the Trump administration. It's not entirely clear if that would be granted. I suspect that it might. Trump says Obamacare is failing all the time, so if a Republican governor wants to try something new, I suspect that Trump would allow them. So happy to take.
Okay, so I'm sorry, Ryan, that in the promotion of this I talked about something that you can't talk about. Can you say as much as you can about the fate of the person in Georgia who was... okay, say as much as you can.
Oh, yeah.
Explain. Okay.
Oh, sure. And, I mean, I think he's talking about the arrest of Reality Winner, right, Eric? Yeah. So our source for this story is not known to us. He or she sent us a document entirely anonymously, and a lot of news outlets use the words anonymously and confidentially synonymously, but they don't mean the same thing. Confidentially means we know the identity of the source, but we're withholding it. Anonymously means we actually don't know the identity of the source. So the Department of Justice is making assertions about the identity of the source and has arrested an NSA contractor who's been fired, but we don't have any particular knowledge of the source, and there's now a prosecution underway. So there really isn't anything that we can or should add at this point to that particular aspect of the story.
Okay. So I'm coming close because it's a tight room. Murray and Paula are arguing right now.
All right.
Okay, Murray says that any discussion of Russia hacking the election is a distraction from hatred of Hillary Clinton, and any person who thinks otherwise is part of something called Correct the Record. Okay, Paula is saying, how's the treason working out for you? Can you give us some, maybe a middle ground between treason and everything has to be about Hillary?
Sure. So I guess this would make me somebody working for Correct the Record. However, I would point out that during the campaign, Correct the Record actually shopped intel to the Huffington Post it was dirt on Bernie Sanders. They when and there is a protocol for how you're supposed to do that in a source relationship. You're supposed to say, hey, can I send you something off the record? And if you say, yes, you can send me something off the record, then an agreement has been struck. They just sent this over the transom and said, hey, look at all this dirt about Bernie Sanders. At the time, they were tying him to Hugo Chavez, or they were comparing him to Jeremy Corbyn. It was a kind of a bizarre attack that they wanted to make, and so I published the fact that Correct the Record was out shopping Oppo on Bernie Sanders, which was one of the first major stories to break out about the campaign, about the campaign fighting between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. In a single day, Bernie Sanders raised $1 million by circulating the story that we wrote. So I don't think anybody can call me a Correct the Record stooge. Here's the thing. The reason that our elections are vulnerable is because there is a political riddle here that is very difficult to solve. Before an election, hacking is a theoretical kind of thing. And so who really wants to spend money shoring up something just based on the possibility that some conspiracy could take place? Then after the election, when or if there is some hacking, there is a huge segment of the population that benefited from it. That is the party that won, or the party that wanted to see that a particular outcome be vindicated. And so you wind up having these groups of people who take an entirely irrational position, which is we shouldn't talk about election integrity, because they're kind of blinded by this whether it's a partisan or other type of infection that doesn't allow them to look at the issue dispassionately. Now, the fact that look, Hillary Clinton, I don't think lost because the election was hacked. I think she lost because she lost. She lost fair and square. But as American citizens, we have to believe that our elections are clean. We have to believe that an outside government can't come in and influence them, because if they do, there will be a growing suspicion about the validity of those elections. When that comes, the entire civic fabric starts to fall apart. So for that reason alone, you have to take this seriously and try to separate it from Hillary Clinton. She lost in November. It's June now. Let's move on. She's done. She's a part of history. She is the first woman to be nominated by a major party to run for president. That's it. That she's not running for president again. Even if some of her aides kind of hint that she might, that's not happening. She's done. That election is over. Now we need to move forward, and there is no rational case that you can make that says that we shouldn't focus on making sure our elections are secure. Now, I actually think that this putting everything online is just a failed experiment. It was a nice thought that we could make our elections smoother and run more efficiently by linking them up to the internet, but the vulnerabilities are too great. I would say just go back to paper ballots across the country. If you want to have machines count them at the precinct so that you can get reports out quickly that night, that's fine, because then you can always go back and count the paper ballots if somebody hacks or manipulates the machine. But to not have any type of paper trail allows too much doubt to come in, especially at a time when there's so much cynicism in our system that just talking about the conclusions of an NSA document leads people to say, well, you must be working for David Brock.
Okay, so a little more on that. So Stephanie says, I need to see more proof. There's been all of this talk. Jedediah says there could be video evidence, and people on the right, and he's only talking about the right. And you have colleagues at The Intercept, I have colleagues at TYT who aren't going to accept this either. But he's saying you could have video evidence and the right wouldn't accept this. And my question to you is, I hope this isn't getting into something you can't speak to, but if this woman was arrested because of the release of your report, you and your colleagues at The Intercept, then either there is something to this, and Trump's call for everyone to worry about leaks more than anything else has now led to someone being arrested for a real reason, that this is a real document, or we're talking about the entire CIA, the entire national intelligence, everybody is playing a joke in order to upset Donald Trump.
Well, and it is a real document. It does not, for people who want to continue to doubt, they could say this. They could say, well, look, this is the judgment of analysts at the National Security Agency, and it is a judgment based on raw intelligence. We have not seen all of that raw intelligence. That has not been leaked yet. It may never be leaked. It may not be entirely conclusive if it is leaked. So if somebody wanted to maintain skepticism even in the face of this, they could. But all of the dots are pointing in the direction that Russia tried to tamper with the election. Now, we still can't conclude that they tipped the election or that they were even trying necessarily to tip the election, but you absolutely can conclude that they were trying to, at minimum, sow doubt about the legitimacy of the election process. And that in itself is an attack on our entire form of government. Doesn't mean that we need to respond militarily. That's the other kind of illogical riposte here, is that as soon as you say that Russia did anything, that you're necessarily saying, well, therefore we must bomb them. That's not the case at all. There are it might just mean, no, we should go to paper ballots. So there are many responses that you could have to this type of news. You're not required to go necessarily to down a path of war.
Okay, Laura Jenkins is calling, or she's texting or whatever, messaging from Vegas, and she wants to know on the Medicare for All in Nevada, will this
Medicaid this time?
Medicaid,
interestingly, which is a break from what other states have done.
So, she's basically saying, how would it work, and would the subsidy still be available even after? I assume she's afraid that the Trump administration would try to undermine it. So
that's a really good question. Trump through Trump Care is trying to cut Medicaid by some $800+ billion over the next 10 years, which would absolutely have a negative impact on the ability of states to expand Medicaid to the rest of their populations. Now, theoretically, this should be kind of a spending neutral type of program, because if you are getting these Obamacare tax credits, then you use those instead to go towards Medicaid, and then you would make up whatever the difference is out of your pocket, which is the same way it works in the marketplace now. And if you're not getting those credits, then you have to pay out of pocket. And so theoretically, you are paying enough into the Medicaid system that it is breaking even for the cost of the expansion, so to speak. So Trump certainly has the ability in a variety of different executive ways to muck this thing up. And if by some chance he could pass his repeal and replace, then it would put it in further jeopardy by shrinking the amount of money available. It seems like you may be able to do it with the current amount of federal dollars that are involved, if not a slight infusion, but it would be very hard to do it with a sharp reduction.
So, yes, I'm sort of jumping over because there's flowers.
They notice you're jumping?
Yeah.
You don't want to kill these flowers.
Yeah, okay. So, there's do you know what the Justice Democrats are? Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's a lot of people. Yeah, okay. So there's a lot of people interested in that. When we were interviewing Ben Jealous, I mentioned to him afterwards that the people were asking about, is he a Justice Democrat? And he was like, what is that? Right. So should someone like Ben Jealous, who's running for governor as a Bernie-crat in Maryland, know what Justice Democrats are? And what do you think they're asking? What are the prospects for Justice Democrats going forward?
The media environment is so disaggregated that it's so hard to hear of anything. There's just so much out there going through your feed so constantly. So in some ways, I don't blame Ben Jealous for not knowing yet about this. This is its first election cycle. if Ben Jealous is for campaign finance, for strong campaign finance reform, overturning Citizens United, Medicare for all, and ending wars, those are the basic, saving the planet from cataclysmic climate change. Those are the basic kinds of things that make up a Justice Democrat, as I understand it. But the way that these groups get themselves onto the national stage is with some high-profile wins. You get involved in a primary or in a general election. More often for these types of groups, it's in a primary. You come in and you tip the balance, and that's the thing. That is the only thing that gets lawmakers to start paying attention, because now their jobs are at risk. There could be an interesting one forming now in Dallas, actually, between Colin Allred and Ed Meyer. Ed Meyer is a longtime Clinton deputy, State Department, was transition deputy chair. There ended up being no transition to the White House, but if there was, he was going to be one. He's running against this guy, Colin Allred, who was a four-year NFL player, and decided that he didn't want to bang his head up anymore because he was already sensing some short-term memory loss, and he didn't want it to go further, and he went to Berkeley Law School instead. In fact, he had got accepted to Berkeley Law School after getting cut by the Tennessee Titans. Just as he was about to start law school, they called him back and said, hey, actually, we need you. So he postponed Berkeley for a year, came back, ended up having a four-year football career. He's from Dallas. He's a kind of a star down there. Extremely progressive guy with a fascinating story, who's running in this district as well. He was already in the race when Ed Meyer, the Clinton deputy, jumped into the race. This week, we got passed an invitation to a fundraiser where a slew of former Clinton kind of people in the Clinton circle are holding a fundraiser here in Washington for Ed Meyer. So the Clinton crowd, Tom Nides, Robbie Mook, Jake Sullivan, all those folks are holding a fundraiser for this guy, Ed Meyer. So it's clearly setting up a kind of Clinton world versus non-Clinton world primary in Dallas. So I'm not saying that Justice Democrats is going to get into that particular race, but if they did get in, and if they did beat the Clinton world, then that's the kind of thing that gets an organization like that on the map and makes people start paying attention.
Okay, Brian Colburn has a really good question. I hope you can answer it. He's basically asking how you feel about your process with The Intercept, including verifying this with the federal government, which led to, he believes, someone being arrested. Do you feel, I guess, bad?
I would say this: be careful believing everything that you read. Beyond that, I'll let you use your common sense. I hope that soon, I'll be able to address this more fully here. As the Department of Justice is working through a prosecution, though, that's not the kind of thing that we can really talk about yet.
Well, can you at least, I'm sorry, but can you confirm what I've read, and that is that The Intercept, before releasing this, contacted federal agencies.
Right. I mean, that's in our story. Absolutely. I mean, this is what you do in general. Is that you work to, if you get an anonymous tip. I'm just speaking in general terms. You get an anonymous tip. You have to try to take it to sources that would be able to confirm it. Just speaking generally. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so like.
You can't just run with stuff.
Right. Yeah. And my thought is that publishing it would have led to the same steps to determine who obtained the document. So the fact that you beforehand verified that it was a real document, it's not on your hands that she was arrested. Okay, do you want to do last comment on each of the two topics and wrap up?
No, that's about it. Maybe this is a place where you guys could help me. So there are places like Iowa, Tennessee, and elsewhere where there are entire counties that don't have any healthcare provider or health insurance provider in the marketplace. And if you're either a lawmaker or a resident in those areas, and you're considering doing a Medicaid for all thing like Nevada is doing, reach out to me, let me know. You can find me at brian.grimm@theintercept.com. You can easily find me on Twitter as well, because I think this could be an interesting and innovative new approach. There's nothing sacrosanct about Medicare for all that makes it the only way to get to single payer. If we got there through Medicaid for all, state by state, that would certainly be a fascinating turn of events and be a boon to millions of people. So thanks for joining us.